Awesome sauce.
Hi, Michelle. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, thanks for coming in today. My name is Emmy, and I am your host for Dr. Jean. Dr. Jean is in the house. You want to say hi?
Hi, how are you, Dr. Jean?
I'm doing well. Thank you. So glad you're here, Michelle. That's great.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Wow, I'm so happy to. So Emmy, when you're ready, if you'll put up our PowerPoint, that would be great.
I can do that. Just be 1 second. Thanks for your patience.
Here we go.
Go back. Okay, you're all set.
And the full screen share, and we'll be ready.
Oh, thank you for.
Absolutely. Thanks for your patience, Michelle. We're almost ready. We had this all practiced too.
Yeah, and of course things never go as smooth as they do in practice. So
Indeed. It is how it goes. So we'll use this. I'm good. No worries.
okay.
We can be flexible. So I'm Dr. Jean Hess, and this is Secret Handshake. And every third Tuesday, I get together and I share my expertise with parents. And Michelle, thank you so much for being here. Are you a parent, Michelle?
Yes, I am indeed.
You are. So if you'll go to the next slide, Emmy, that would be great. What we tend to do, Michelle, is we look at, we introduce ourselves so we know who we are and how we can begin to talk about our peeps, whoever our peeps are, and what brings us here, and how we can support one another. And so I can certainly go first. If you go to the very next slide, that would be great, Emmy. And I can tell you that I need to know your name and who your special person is. So Michelle, this is my special person, and I'll talk about him in just a moment. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, then that would be awesome. And we know a little bit more about who we're sharing our time with.
So my name is Michelle, and I have a 13-year-old son, Nicholas. He has dyslexia and dyscalculia, and is in 7th grade in a full language development program school, public school, that is. And I struggle about this time of the year because it's the end of the school year.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, another year down, which just means he's getting older, which just means, how do I situate him for adulthood and all of that. He is learning. I know he's learning. He is progressive, but his test scores, like even with the latest neuropsych in November 2022, it's below average. And I don't know what's reality. I don't know if it's the test scores. I don't know if it's the Mia. Oh my God, sorry. I don't know if you hear all of that.
No, we don't. It's all right.
Okay. Or if he is concerned himself. He's been telling me a number of years. He's like, I don't think I'm learning. I don't think I'm learning anything. And that concerns me. And I have to reassure him that he is, that I see it, and I have to actually show examples that he's learning.
Yeah.
So why am I here? I'm here because I saw this and I'm like, I miss everything. Usually I miss all the meetings and
Oh,
anything
look, you're
concerning.
here.
Yeah,
That's
but I'm here
awesome.
today.
That's great. I love it. That's terrific. So Emmy, if you'll go to the next slide, I'll tell Michelle a little bit about me and the special person in my life. And here I am. I'm Dr. Jean Hess, and this is my son. This is Alex, and Alex is 25. He'll be 26 in September. And I've worked with individuals with disabilities my entire adult life. So people will ask me when they hear that my doctorate is in special education, whether Alex came first or the doctorate in special education came first. And the short answer is I taught special ed for a long time before Alex was born. And so, and he wasn't identified until I was in my doctoral program when he was in, I don't know, kindergarten or first grade, somewhere in there. Can you imagine, Michelle, being the teacher at the elementary school who had to call and say, Jean, we think maybe Alex has some learning difficulties. Can we have a meeting and talk about that? Because I was doing my dissertation at the time. So really brave people to do that. And so I have parented a child with special needs. I have taught children with special needs. I have advocated and worked with parents of children with special needs. So I think that puts me in a position to be able to share some knowledge. And I hope that I can do that with you today, Michelle. So where do you want to start? I hear Nicholas has some things going on that I can certainly identify with. Alex is also dyscalculic, and so that is not unknown to me. And I have a niece who is dyslexic and has dysgraphia as well. So I'm pretty sure that you and I can have a conversation and that I may be able to help. So where do you want to begin?
Goodness, I didn't know this was going to be focused on my situation.
But it can be. Isn't
Okay,
that
okay.
delightful? So here's what I
Okay.
heard you say. So let me give you some things that I can right off the top based on what you shared. Is that okay?
Yes, certainly.
Awesome. So there was a lot there packed into what you did share. So I hear that Nicholas is in 7th grade. He has dyscalculia and dyslexia, and he had a neuropsych in November that you feel may not necessarily be an accurate representation of either what he knows or what he doesn't know. And so that's something we can talk about. One of the things that you said that I really liked is that you can see him making growth and that you share that with him. And I think that that's super important. I do that too. There are times when Alex feels really discouraged. His big thing is figuring out how to handle his emotions. He has some really big emotions, and there are times when those come out all over the place, and we have to deal with those in small pieces so that he can sort of process those and figure out where to put them and how to put them and how to bring them out and interact in ways that are more appropriate. And so I'm very fond of sitting down and saying, wow, do you remember just this much time ago you were, and I'll break it down for him, and now this is, and he's like, oh, Mama, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, it's there. So the fact that you do that for Nicholas is really awesome. And I'm super glad to hear that you do that. I think that it might be really cool to ask him to maybe figure out how he can keep track of that, because at some point when he's not at home, he's going to need to be able to figure out how to be able to tell himself that he's making progress. And I'm not saying in 7th grade that he should take over all of it, but if he learns those skills about how he can sort of keep track of his own learning, whether it's school learning or job learning or life skill learning, then I think that we move it from that extrinsic, those words come out here, from out here, to intrinsic, wow, I can really see that I am making progress in these areas. And I think that that might be helpful. So that's one thing that I would suggest. Is that something that that resonates with you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold the phone. Yes, it just happened last night where he was very down on himself, and And it does pop up more often than it should, I think, where he feels very discouraged and doesn't feel like he's learning up to, optimally, I guess. Whatever version that is in his head, whatever he thinks he should be learning.
Exactly. Another good way of framing that.
So, I see the progress. Is he at 7th grade? He's making his own progress. Is he in 7th grade level? I don't think so. But so that's where my concern is. At what point,
So what's his school team say about that? Is his
I
school
haven't met,
concerned?
well, no, when you talk to the school, and this has been like this every year, when you,
Yeah.
during report card time,
Right.
they always show such good things,
Mhm.
that it's almost an illusion.
So give me an example.
He's getting great grades, for example. His grades are fabulous. They're A's and B's most of the time. He's doing
Good.
his homework. He wants to do well. He wants to do well for himself. He wants to do well for the teachers. So his grades are fabulous. But it's not in comparison, and this is, I don't know where to go from here, but it's not the 7th grade level. It's not mainstream 7th grade. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So does he has an IEP?
Oh, yes, he does. Yes.
Awesome. And how long has he had an IEP?
Probably since the end of 1st grade. So he's had it for 6 years.
Yeah. I'm writing Emmy a note offline. I'm sorry. So, 6 years, has an IEP, knows that, that he has some learning difficulties, getting good grades, but doesn't feel that he's at grade level. So back to how can he monitor his own learning? So what if he does, so all sorts of studies. I love doing this with kids who get it. So one of the things that that you can talk to him about is whether or not he wants to set a goal per week. So what is it that he thinks that he wants to master this week? So it can be from a class, it can be a skill, a specific skill that's not necessarily class specific, but skill specific. And
Yes.
then at the end of the week, he can do some self-assessment and he can ask himself or have examples of how he has either made progress towards that goal or has mastered that goal, and then make another one so that he himself can see that he's making progress. And so if he does that in a journal, now he's not only got, this is what's happening and I'm making progress, but now he has it in a journal. And 3 months from now, he can come back to May 16th and say, oh, wow, that's where I was then. Now it's July 15th, if my brain caught those numbers fast enough. And that means, August, that means that he's made this much progress and he can see that it's tangible. He has written it down. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, no, that's a good example. Yeah.
Exactly. And the power in that is he's doing it for himself and he has proof. So now it's not just mom saying, I can see that you're making progress, but now it's, I can see by this measure that I am making progress. And then the next thing will be, it doesn't have to be progress at the speed of light. It can be progress, slow and steady wins the race, right? And so progress is what you want to see. And I think that may be helpful. Sometimes it's, when I worked with some kids, it was, I couldn't see the progress because it was so slow or seemingly so slow. And then I had people who were only in my classroom once every 2, 3, 4 weeks because they didn't need to be there any more frequently than that. And they'd be like, wow, I can't believe what so-and-so is doing now. And I didn't get to see that because I was there every day. And so I missed that. So that might be really helpful for him to be able to say, this is what I want to do. Here is the progress I'm making, and then start to reflect on that to see that he is indeed making progress. And you certainly can continue to praise him and encourage him, but it sounds like he may want some tangible evidence so that he can feel better about the fact that he is learning. Not that it may be slower, but the fact that he is learning is super important. So is that something that might help?
Oh, yeah. And I have work that he's done that I could actually show him.
That would
And
be-
I think he needs to actually see it,
Yeah,
and more than
absolutely.
just verbalize it to him. And I think he was
Absolutely.
realizing that last night, but it was right before he was going to sleep. I think all the worries were coming out at
Right.
that point.
Hey, it
And
happens to the best of us.
yeah, exactly. So it was all coming out. And he does express this to me almost on a weekly basis. Almost
So,
on a weekly. If I keep track of it, it probably is weekly.
right. So this might be a really good way for him to be able to see that he is making progress and making progress on things that are important to him because he can choose what that is. So the other thing will be to help him understand that he needs to choose something that's realistic, right?
Yes.
And that's the other thing.
Mm.
So the other thing is, how do we choose what's realistic to write down as a goal? And so,
Right.
you know, I want to skydive, but it's not really realistic. So, you know,
Yeah, either for me, exactly.
yeah. So what is a realistic goal? Realistic goal for me is I have things that have to be done by Friday. And so on my list of things to do, I have, here are the things I need to do in order to be prepared for this on Friday. So that's realistic. And it may be that
Mm.
that whole trial and error to help him be able to figure out what's something that's realistic that he would be able to accomplish, cross off his list, or show that he's learned or whatever, and then move on to the next thing. And I think that that's a really good life skill to have. And so being able to transition that to as a responsibility for him, maybe transformative for him to be able to learn how to do that in a way that is real, not so far out that he can't see progress, and that allows him to see progress over time. And if you have examples of that right now, that's awesome. It would be a good start for him, and then introduce the idea that he can do that himself too.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
He has homework due midweek, and then there's always stuff due. So
But
within
what are
that
the
work,
skills on that? That's the important part, not just do the homework, but what are the skills? Because I think that that's the part that he may feel insecure about. He may be uncertain whether he's gaining the skill. And I would really focus on, does it have to be a specific school skill, or can it be he's organized and he does his homework, or he's punctual and he has a time when he does his homework? So how can you make it more about a life skill than just the academics that are happening? So the academics will take care of themselves because the teachers are going to lockstep him through whatever he needs to do. But what are the skills that he needs to have in order to make progress on his person? Yep. Go ahead, Emmy.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. There's someone else wanting to join us in the waiting room.
Beautiful.
May I let them in?
Absolutely.
I wanted you to finish your thought because of
did.
where we were headed. So
Thank
let me
you.
do that.
Appreciate it. Michelle, I hope that makes sense.
yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I really like that idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm absolutely sure that more will come up. So hang tight and we'll see where else things go. Michelle, I will tell you that there's a really large body of evidence that talks about how important it is to have students monitor their own progress and how powerful that is in the long run. So it's not just a Dr. Jean idea, it's one that's based on a whole bunch of research. So I think that's cool too.
I think we all forget what we do.
Yeah, we do. It's true. Does your son have an extended school year, or does he get the summer off?
Well, yes, he gets the summer off, so I've been trying to find something that would continue the extended school year because he does need that.
Right. And who has made the decision that that he doesn't have extended school year?
Well, the city offers their own program, but we've used it in the past and I don't find it sufficient enough.
So where are you?
South of Boston.
So, depending on the amount of progress he loses, it's a horrible word, I don't like it very much, that he loses over the course of a summer would help determine whether or not he needs to have an extended school year. He has a right to that as a student with an IEP. The education team needs to talk about whether or not he regresses, that's the word we use in education, whether or not he regresses to such a degree that he would benefit from having an extended school year, which means he would then go to school for 5, 7, 8 weeks, depending on the school district and the state and whatever they have in place. And then he would have that service available to him through the school district that you live in. And that the purpose of that is to help him maintain where he is at the end of a school year, so he doesn't regress and then lose academic progress at the beginning of the next school year. Does that make sense?
Yes, they realize that he needs that component in order not to regress, because the regression is pretty fast.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed. And he's not offered that?
Yes, they have a program, but we did try it one year right after COVID, right after the 2020 version of COVID.
Yes.
And it just wasn't, there was no OG. It just wasn't up to par. It just wasn't up to the level that he really needed.
So then the struggle is to try to find something that is what he needs.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And not only something that he needs, but that he's going to enjoy and that will support him to the degree that he needs to be supported.
Yes, that's the other. Yes. No, I agree with all of that.
Yeah. Not easy being a parent of a child with special needs.
It is not.
It is not. I agree.
So not to interrupt, but Dr. Jean, like I did mention earlier, we have I think another guest in here.
Yeah.
I believe it's Jasmine. I just want to check and make sure you are
Connecting
here
audio.
and you're listening. And
it wasn't trying to exclude Jasmine. She's still trying to connect to audio. So
I just wanted to make sure that, yeah, you don't exclude anyone. Look, I'm here, so I can't beat that. There's no exclusion here, so.
no exclusion here. So I went to this really cool event not too long ago, and there were probably, I'm going to say 150 to 200 people, families, who were there to celebrate a charitable organization that my son and I have been connected to for some large amount of time. And there were all sorts of individuals. There were really high functioning individuals with disabilities, and there were some who were clearly physically involved, and they were in wheelchairs, and some were verbal and some weren't verbal. And there were neurotypical siblings or cousins or neighbors, and they were running around doing their thing. And what I really enjoyed about the experience of being there was that everybody belonged. And so it was, there were activities for all sorts of ages and all sorts of abilities, and families just helped. And so when this one young person decided that she wanted her picture taken with, I don't know, whatever character was wandering around, we figured out how to make that happen. And so, yeah, I tend to be attached to organizations that are accepting, because I don't know normal. So normal has not been part of my world ever. So that's great. I don't know what's going on for Jasmine. I don't know how to help her connect. It's not my forte. So should we?
I'm just seeing if I can help from my end.
Okay, thank you for that. So Michelle, I have another idea for you. While we're waiting for Jasmine. So one of the things that I heard you say was that you're not sure how to plan for Nicholas's future. And I think that at 14 and a half, so he's got a little over a year if he just turned 13, then the schools will start working with him on his transition plan. And I don't know if that's something that you're familiar with or not.
No, I have not. I have not. I've heard that briefly, like here and there, but not directly to me or to him.
They won't until he's 14 and a half. So I have some advice around that. Can I give you some advice around that?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. Well, he's a little young, so this is just forward thinking. I tend to be a proactive person, so just forward thinking. So I would suggest that Nicholas start attending his IEP meetings now, so that when he is in the spotlight, because he has reached the magic mandated age of 14 and a half, then he already has the experience of attending his IEP meetings, and it's not a double whammy of having never attended and now people are asking him questions that he may not know the answers to. So that helps him in a couple of ways. It helps begin to introduce him to the process. It also helps him begin to get a feel for what everybody's role sort of is. And then at 14 and a half, they'll start exploring whatever he thinks he wants to be when he grows up. And they may do some vocational evaluations, and they may do some career interest inventories, and they may start doing some, let's look at what are your options. So does he think that he may want to go to college? Does he want to start some maybe community college level classes while he's in high school, so he gets a taste of what that might be like? Does he want to go to a vocational program while he's in high school, so he has an opportunity to find out what that's like? And as they move through high school, Nicholas, because he has an IEP, has a right to a free and appropriate public education until the day before his 22nd birthday. And so it may be that transition program, that what's called a transition program, is the time from 18, or when they graduate from their senior year in 12th grade, to that day before their 22nd birthday. That's called the transition program. And at that time, there are a whole bunch of options available. One may be that he is supported in a program that looks kind of like a day program, and they help him by teaching him job skills, helping him find a job, figuring out if there's a college program that would support him and his needs well enough and help him explore those options and find out what a best fit might be. So that's what a transition program is, but it wouldn't be for another almost 5 years for him. But to begin thinking, I know that I have one friend, friend now, started as a client of mine as when I was parent advocating for a long time ago. And she and I have been on a quest to find what's exactly right for her son for a very long time. And he is now almost 22, and he didn't go through a district sponsored transition program. he found a college program that's meant for individuals with disabilities. And so they have a full-time live-in dorm kind of situation. And some of what they do is college-like in terms of classes and learning and that kind of thing. And the rest is vocational-like. So he's learning job skills and has gone into a couple of internships so that he has an idea of the kind of things that he might like. And so does that help understand a transition program a bit better?
Yes, I didn't even know something like that existed.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Transition programs some are run by the district themselves, and others are either in the county that you live in or like a consolidated group of districts will offer a program for individuals who have that need with special needs. And there are others, like I said, that aren't connected to districts at all. And so you would then sever free and appropriate public education through your district and find a program that's appropriate that you think would best meet his needs. So that's transition. How cool is that?
That's fabulous. Now, do all kids that have learning disabilities or any other disability go through this, or can they opt out? How exactly?
These are great questions, Michelle. I'm so glad you're here today. So, two things. First, any child with an IEP has a right to a free and appropriate public education from their 3rd birthday to the day before their 22nd birthday. And so the option is that if the families choose and the need is there, then their child's needs are provided for through the district from 18 to 22. If the educational team at the school and the parents both agree that there isn't a need for continued service to be provided by the school district, then the parents can pull their child from school. They graduate with their classmates and they go forth in the world, and they are finished with school as we know it, because I graduated from high school and then I went on to college. My son graduated from high school and then did 4 more years within his district that was provided by his district in another school. And then he graduated from that program. And so it depends on what's best for Nicholas and how that pans out for him over the next several years. Does that answer that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I don't even know what they have. All right. I'll look now. Thanks.
Yeah. And more importantly, not just within the district, but now you can talk to other parents. That was the real help for my friend and for myself. So what do you know about this program? And did it work for your child? And were they really cool people? And what services did they offer? So that's one reason that it's really cool. The other thing is that you now have time to find out what's around you. Because, sometimes if you're not aware, all of a sudden you're deer in the headlights and you feel like you have to do something, but you don't have the time to explore. So with that kind of foreknowledge, you can begin to kind of look at that. And that's another reason that I think it would be really cool for Nicholas to be able to document and make his own goals, set his own goals. Because once he then gets to 14 and a half and he's in that where he begins the transition planning. So think about that. 14 and a half, that gives him 3.5 years to figure out what the next steps are going to be. So it's not rushed at all. And as he goes through that process, he's continuing to write his own goals and begin to figure out how he wants to move towards those goals, so that when he gets to 18, you guys can all make an informed decision based on here's the last several years and how he moved through this process. And so now we can take that information and think about how much support he needs as he moves through 18 to 22. Is it possible for him to be in a supported college program? Is it possible for him to be in a supported employment vocational program? And so now you've got options because he's had all this time to begin to evaluate his own skills and his own needs. And so he can then make informed decisions. I really like that idea a lot.
So this isn't based on state, is it? Is
It's
it
been-
based,
It's a federal law.
it's a federal, okay, okay.
It's part of the same federal law that provides a free and appropriate public education, the IEP process and all of that. It's all part of the same piece of legislation.
Okay, I guess what I was trying to say, it's not a state by state law, it's a federal across the board law,
Yes.
okay.
Mhm. So if you decided to move from Massachusetts to, I don't know, choose a state, it doesn't matter. He's going to have the same right in that state. He still has a right to a free and appropriate public education until the day before his 22nd birthday. Now, it may look different in terms of the programs that are offered, either the number or the type, but it's a federal law that any child with an IEP anywhere in the country has a right to a free and appropriate public education until the day before their 22nd birthday.
Thank you, because I was not aware of that. I'm going in the moment.
I know. And yet I heard you say, so we don't know what to do. We don't know what the next steps are. And in the absence of that knowing, it's really anxiety provoking. And so how then can you begin to get that information together so that you can move forward with some knowledge of what the next steps are and begin to plan? So yeah, it's a pretty big deal. I will tell you though, depending on Nicholas's abilities and what his needs may be as an adult, that's a whole nother ball of wax. That day that they turn 22 and you realize there's nothing else on the horizon. Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah, that is, I'm sure, yeah. I can sense it, and I'm still far from it, but I can sense
Yeah.
that.
That's where I am. My son will turn 26 in September, and there's very little on the horizon. So it's where you live and the services that may or may not be provided for adults who need them. So that's a whole nother set of, what do I do now? So Emmy, I'm not sure that we're able to connect Jasmine. Is that true? You're muted. I can't hear you.
I'm not able to do anything from my end from what I could see. So there's probably something that needs to happen out, with her computer and just adjusting the volume and the permissions.
Have you been able to reach her by chat?
I have not.
That's a sad thing. Michelle, what else can I tell you? So tell me again, does is he in self-contained classrooms or, and there's Jasmine.
Excuse me.
Oh,
Yeah. Yay. Yeah.
Yay, we made
did
it.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let me finish my question. Is he in self-contained classrooms or is he in co-taught classrooms where there are two teachers and he's supported in a regular gen ed classroom?
All I know, the way we say it, he's in a full-time language development program.
How
So
many
he's
people are in his class?
probably 6 to 8
Got it.
kids
Thank you.
with a
Yep.
teacher and assistant, correct?
Yep, that helps. Thank you. Thank you. Jasmine, hello. So glad that we are finally connected. That's terrific. And she's gone. There you have it. Maybe she'll come back. What do you think?
Well, I mean, sometimes I think people just get a little shy.
There you go.
This is different. This is a different format.
It is.
And sometimes we don't want to share, but we still want to learn.
Hmm,
So I think that's okay,
me too.
so uh, I'm hoping she does return.
Yeah, that
Because I
would be
think we,
great.
we grow from each other. So
Indeed.
So would you mind explaining, you said you do this every third week of the month or something?
Every third Tuesday. Yeah,
Every third Tuesday of the month. Okay.
I do. It's my way of giving back.
Yes, yes. So
I
it's
have,
more interactive. It's an interactive Zoom
absolutely.
as opposed
Indeed.
to,
Mhm.
okay.
It doesn't have to be. I certainly, but it makes sense to me to be able to answer questions that people have. There was no me in my world, and so I didn't know a lot of this stuff. I had book knowledge, but being able to actually live it is it's a whole nother dynamic. And so it feels that being able to help people understand the process or understand how to help their kids better just makes sense to me.
Well, I can spread the word if you
Oh, yeah,
like,
that'd
that
be
you have
great. I would love that.
every third Tuesday. I keep saying Thursday, but it's Tuesday.
Every third Tuesday. Absolutely. That would be delightful. I would be gratefully appreciative. I'm sure that you know people that may have questions.
All right, yeah.
Good.
And are you based in Massachusetts or is it just oh, you're not? Okay.
I'm not.
Right.
I started my teaching career in New York. At one point, I was only 7 miles from Massachusetts when I was teaching. And then I did my doctoral work in Kentucky. So I taught and got my doctorate from the University of Kentucky in Lexington. And now I'm outside Chicago. So,
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're all over. So
yeah.
you've seen a lot, I'm sure.
Oh, wow. Check this out. Every day I still teach in New York. And then 3 times a year, or 7 weeks at a time, I teach master's students all over the country.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And do you have recordings? Do you have like, I noticed that you're recording this.
Yeah.
So what do you
There.
do with, yeah.
So some of them are on our YouTube channel and some of them are on my Facebook channel. And
Okay.
I don't know if I can pull that information quickly, but we could try. I also work with businesses. So Secret Handshake is work with families because I've worked with families for a very long time and this is my heart home. And I work with businesses because our kids grow up and they need to be in places where they will be welcomed. And so I have started working with businesses who already have DEI programs in place and really tried to help them understand that integrating the neurodiverse into their businesses is just one more form of DEI. And if they already have the foundation initiative in place, then it's just one more way to embrace diversity. So I do that too.
Oh, wow. Yes, I know about that training as well. Yep.
Mhm. So do we have questions that have been sent in, Emmy? Since I put Michelle on the hot seat for a long time.
actually, that we definitely do. So I was just looking at it myself, actually. So I feel like we went a lot of different places here. Um, so I'm going to just pull something out, and if it's and you can tell me. So one of the questions was, how do we talk with our neurodiverse children about different subjects, such as making friends, greater independence, online safety, making future plans, and all the topics in between. And I
So
feel like we touched on some of that, but maybe
we
not
did.
all of it.
So let's choose one of those because there isn't a blanket answer for all of them. So choose one. How do we talk to our children about?
Oh, you want me to choose?
Yeah,
Okay.
just choose one.
Okay, so it feels so let's say about making let's do greater independence, because I feel like that is definitely something that maybe we should let Michelle choose, but that would be my choice.
Awesome. How do we talk to our children about greater independence? I have one of those. I talk about how to have greater independence every single day. In fact, this morning it was, I have 2 roundtables today. So today you're going to need to be especially independent. Okay, mama. And I'm like, so what does that mean? And there isn't always a good answer for him. So today, I grabbed a handy dandy envelope because I save all envelopes that come into the house to be recycled as note paper. And we wrote down what needs to be done today that I can't be supportive about. So today's list was, what do you do when you wake up? And how do you get yourself lunch? Because I'm here, I'm not there, so I can't do that. So how do you talk to your kids about independence? What do they want to be independent in? That's the first one. My son wants to be independent on the computer. He wants to do X and Y, and how come I can't? And why do you say? And I don't like your rules. And so, does any of this sound familiar, Michelle? I don't know any parent.
He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a lot of movement here.
So we figure out what independence means. In my mind, independence isn't in this area of his life and not in this area of his life. So how do we figure out how to bring those together and help him be the very best independent young adult that he can be? And it's baby steps. And so what's the first thing that he can do, or any child can do? And so I remember teaching students how to put their coat on. So or how to zip their coat, or how to put their shoes on, or how to fix their lunch. And so every one of those has a little bit different tact to it. But the big idea is, what is it that you want them to be independent in? Write down all the steps. Write down all the steps that it takes to be independent in whatever that is. And then figure out what steps do they already know, and what steps do they need to know, and how can you teach them that? There are 2 ways you can teach them. The first one is you can start whatever that step is and they can finish it, or they can start it and you can finish it. And so every time that you do whatever that skill is that they want to be independent in, or you want them to be independent in, then you either start it and they finish, or they start it and you finish, and you move on to the next step. And so that works for everything from tying shoes to making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh, it might be a little more difficult when you're teaching them to drive. And quite frankly, I might pay somebody else to help them learn how to drive. So that would be my answer to that. You pick it, you break it down, you help them with the steps they don't know, and you just keep on rolling. What's the next independent whatever? So that's how I would do it, Emmy.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for expanding on that. Would you like another question?
Absolutely.
I feel like this is important. How do I deal with the stress?
How do you deal with the stress? Deep
How
breath.
do you deal?
Very often, a deep breath. That's the first one. I think that I have a skill set that not every parent with a child with special need has, and that is, I have worked with individuals with special needs for an embarrassingly long time. So I've been told that I have a get into heaven free card because I've been at this a really long time. Deal with the stress. Deep breathing. That's my first one. I have a fantastic group of friends, and I can text when I'm in the midst of a stressful situation. I can call as soon as I get far enough away from a stressful situation that I feel safe enough to call. So I think, and having other friends who have kids with disabilities is certainly helpful, because they certainly probably understand better than most, or can identify better than most. I'm very careful about the way I use the word understand. I personally don't have any problem having a mental health professional nearby. So it took me not very long to realize that the stress that I feel because of my son's particular characteristics of autism mean that I really need to be able to talk about that in a way that allows me to be as blunt and open as I need to be, and to figure out how to deal with some of the triggers that result from his being angry and some of his physical aggression. And so I have no problem advising parents if they need to, and the stress is such that it is impairing their ability to get through daily tasks of some sort or another, that having a counselor isn't a bad idea. Those are my ideas. Take a deep breath, take a walk. I walk a lot. Have friends out here. It's really important that you have boundaries. I wouldn't take my stress and put it on my child. I think that having that boundary and having my parenting self and my I need to express myself over here so that that's out here and doesn't affect my relationship with him. And it's not bad to admit that a mental health professional may be somebody that's important for you to have as a parent of a child with disabilities. You are muted.
Of course I am. Every time I talk, I mute myself. So thank you, Dr. Jean. And where would you like to go from here? Would you like another question?
I think we can do one more.
Okay. So how do I balance time with well, actually, now let's do this one. How about, and I feel like you've already talked about this a little bit, but how do I make sure my child receives a quality education? Because we did talk a little bit about federal, and we got a little bit into state. And I think you've seen both, especially with the effects of your own child himself going from one program into another. So I feel like that's a great question.
I agree. So there are a couple of things that I would advise somebody to pay attention to in order to make sure that their child has a quality education. The first one is to understand the IEP process and to understand that the IEP is a living and dynamic document. When I was teaching, there were times when I wouldn't see parents except at an annual review, which means I only saw them once a year. I would try to have phone calls, communication back and forth, but they only, and sometimes not even then, were actively involved in the school at the time of that annual review. And I think that it's important for parents who want to know that their children are receiving a quality education to understand that they have a right as a parent of a child with disabilities to request an IEP meeting anytime they want. And so one of the things that I did as a parent was make sure that at the very least we had a quarterly meeting. My son's needs were such that we needed to know that the entire team knew what was going on and that we understood that his needs were or weren't being met. And if they were, terrific, what's next on the list of things to do? And if they're not, why aren't they being met? And what do we need to do or change in order for those goals and objectives or whatever's written on the IEP to be better met? And so I think that in order to be aware of and on top of whether or not your child is receiving a quality education, you need to pay attention to what's going on at school. And the easiest way that we have to do that as parents of children with special needs is to ask to have an IEP meeting so that we can touch base with the educational team. And we're a part of that. And so we can ask questions and make sure that things are progressing. And if they're not, to find out what we can do to make progress happen. The end. And you're muted.
The end, and I'm muted. Thank you again,
And you're muted.
Dr.
So I'm
G.
going to ask if we can go back to the PowerPoint, if that's not going to be too much trouble. And I think we'll go to one of the last slides and we'll put up how people can be in touch, which feels pretty important because, you know, I'm only here once a month, but that doesn't mean that I'm out of reach for the rest of the month. Michelle, did that spark any more questions? I will tell you too, when my son was at the end of third grade, and third grade was a rough year. The last 3 weeks of school, we had an IEP meeting, a full IEP meeting every single day for the last 3 weeks. So we're going to click slideshow, Emmy. There we go. Ta-da, look at that. And we had an IEP meeting every day for the last 3 weeks because we needed to. On to the next, if you would, please. There we go. So you can schedule a time to talk with me by going to askdrjean.com. And there we can schedule a time to chat if we need to. I'm on social media, either Secret Handshake or Dr. Jean. That's all there. And look, Michelle, there's just exactly what you suggested. Tell others about next month's Secret Handshake Zoom Roundtable. It will be the third Tuesday. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Emmy, will you tell us what the date is in June, please? And right now they are twice on that third Tuesday, 1 o'clock Central Time and 7 o'clock Central Time. And in June, the magic dates are?
In June, the magic dates are, you said the third Tuesday?
Third Tuesday.
The 20th.
Beautiful. So on June 20th, I'll be here at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central Time. And Michelle, unless you have something else, I think we're pretty close to a wrap.
No, that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. It was fun to talk about Nicholas. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Emmy, thanks for being the hostess with the mostest today.
You are most welcome as always. I'm glad I could help.
Indeed. Our best to our friend Thomas, who is out having dental surgery right now.
Well, I'm sure he'll be back the next time.
June 20th, and it'll be great. Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, and very nice to meet you.
Nice meeting both of you. Bye-bye.
Stop recording.